Sounds Legends. Good. Oh my gosh, Vog. Right as you're resubscribing for 18 months? Come on, Ledge. Guys, hello. Happy Wednesday. We are here with GM Alex. We are blessed and happy to be here. Alex, how you living?
I'm doing good, thank you. How are you?
I am doing really well. I slept like 9 hours last night. You know what I mean? So this is as good as you're ever going to get me. I apologize. This is it.
So I got you at your peak.
Yeah, 100%. Not all can say that. Real quick, I just want to shout out Vog. Vog, thank you so much. Appreciate you coming through, supporting, loving. Also want to shout out Richter. That's the Lord Richter, a.k.a. Inspired Incompetence, who connected Alex.
Oh, where's that son of a bitch?
Exactly. Well, he better not show up because we'll both strangle him. But yeah, man, I appreciate you asking, dude. I appreciate you coming through. It looks like my shout out is bugged and frozen, so nothing new there, Vog. I tried. But Alex, I mean, before we get going, dude, like, give us the speed dating introduction. Like, you know, what's going on? You know, what's your favorite video game? Your favorite color? Can you swim? I don't know. Fun facts. I'm always trying to dig for those fun anecdotes.
Sure. So I am a father of two, husband of one, and
let's go.
Yep, just living my life, upstate New York, full-time job plus part-time job.
Respect.
And just filling my free time with sleep.
Like any good father must.
My favorite color is green.
Is green? Me too, dude. I love that. I'm guessing
Perfect.
like darker, like forest.
I like a good earthy green.
Good earthy green. Okay, kind of like muddy. I love that.
Yeah.
How old are your kids?
They are 7 and 10.
7 and 10? God bless you. You look younger than I do, man. I have a 1-year-old, and
stop.
And I'm on the ropes. 7 and 10 that's a journey. Boy, girl?
Both girls.
I love it.
Yep. No, I remember when each of them was one, and it's some kind of psychological torture that shouldn't be legal, but you just gotta.
But we do it.
You just gotta put up with it.
Oh, God bless, man. Well, upstate New York is not an area I know well, but I'm of course been like to New York City a handful of times. But some good friends of friends that I've only really hung out with like 3 or 4 times, but I enjoyed meeting them. Moved to upstate New York. They're both artists.
Nice.
I'm not really sure. Probably it was right pandemic-y era. And I only bring that up because it strikes me as being an extremely fantasy adjacent landscape, or in terms of what perhaps North America could offer in the sense of deep forest, and that kind of coniferous tapestry. But am I way off on that? Is that me, reading the fantasy of the mind?
We got it all. I mean, there are certainly parts of upstate New York that fit that bill. I used to go to the Adirondacks quite a lot when I was younger.
It's a mountain range?
And yeah. And
I didn't know if it was a dance club.
It's there might be a couple peppered in there, but for the most part it's just mountains and lakes and forests. And yeah, no, it's very just, you're just out there with nature, nobody else in the world. But there are other parts of upstate New York that are just farms.
Got you. Yeah. That's cool though.
So,
man. Are you born in New York?
Yeah.
Sick.
Yeah, I've spent my whole life in New York.
Respect.
Just kind of. I think I've traveled maybe. Besides the random trip or two, I've maybe traveled 50 miles from between being born and where I am now.
Wow. That's actually incredibly impressive. I feel like that's rare. That harkens back to the days of old.
Well, if you thought that was impressive, check this out. I did it by accident.
You're like,
I'm just stumbling through, man.
Yeah.
I just wound up here.
You're like, I didn't realize
found-
that fact until this very moment.
I found a link in my Discord, and I wound up on this Zoom call.
Here we go. Yes, you've been.
So,
This is
and here we are.
This is how I have lured many a guest. Well, let's dive in, man. No better segue than that. I love that. I mean, obviously, like a lot of what, or not obviously, but I feel like D&D is, the most common and sort of popular system. Obviously, 5e has had an enormous renaissance in the tabletop world. And we'll maybe talk a little bit about 5.5. I'm still kind of undoctrinated. But I'm curious, man, like something I always like to ask first is some version of like what brought you to the tabletop, so to speak. Like, were you playing D&D as a kid? Was it a different system? Shout out to Red Sage. Love you, dude. But like what kind of brought you into the fold?
The first system I ever played was in my like early high school years. It would have been 3.5.
Let's go.
And I dabbled ever so briefly in 4th edition, and like many others, went to Pathfinder 1st edition after that, and that actually is where I've stayed ever since.
Okay.
I did some a little bit of 5th edition D&D, and I played a bit of the Pathfinder 2nd edition playtest, but for the most part, I am creature of habit, stuck in my ways, grouchy old man, Pathfinder 1st edition.
That's badass. You were a player in 3.5?
Yes.
And then became also a DM in 3.5, it sounds like.
No, I actually didn't start DMing until I got into Pathfinder.
Okay. Sick. Okay.
Maybe 7 or 8 years ago now.
That's badass. And how easy or hard would it be to onboard a new Pathfinder player? Let's say they have 5e experience.
Okay, sure. I don't think it's it's really that difficult. Pathfinder 1st edition is a very modular game. There's a lot of moving parts, and it's really just a matter of getting comfortable with the system. 5th edition, from what I remember, is very streamlined. It's a lot more like you've got like much bigger pieces that like each character choice you make is like a very like it covers a lot more of your adventuring career, whereas Pathfinder, you have to make like 10 choices for every like 2 or 3 choices you make for your character in 5th edition. That may have changed since the last time I played 5th edition. I don't know. But from what I understand, it's a bit more crunchy. But really Pathfinder 1st edition, a bit more crunchy. But really in my experience, it's really just a matter of player buy-in. Just if the player wants to or is open to trying a new system, then the game is the game. It's just the system is the backdrop.
Yeah,
but
and unfortunately, the player is the player, as I found out the hard way with Red Sage. It's you get what you get. You know what I mean?
That is true.
No, obviously joking, but dude, no, character buy-in is everything. I mean, okay, I see that. So it sounds like there's more character definition. There's also more mechanics, right? Which can be a very enriching element, but it can also sort of be a little bit harder for, depending who the person is or, how much experience the player has. Totally get that. It's funny you mentioned 4th edition because I'm actually porting over Dark Sun to a 5th edition campaign that we're about to run. And I'm using the 4th edition version. I'm not really sure why. I thought it was 3.5, but I think it was just the PDF version I found. In 4th edition, man, seems very, very crunchy as well. Seems like there's a lot of textures and layers. Do you know if Pathfinder 1st to 2nd edition gets streamlined comparatively?
Yes. 2nd edition kind of went in a similar direction of 5th edition. They kept things more modular than 5th edition. but they really and it's not to the system's detriment. From what I've seen of it, it's it works. I'm the kind of person that like I love having moving pieces. I love to just give me like those like Zen gardens and whatever, and I'll fiddle with those all day, and I like do the same thing with like character creation, designing encounters and stuff like that.
Like you like the little tweaks and getting in there.
Yeah, and like for me, not to get off topic, but like that's what keeps me in first edition of Pathfinder as opposed to like any other single edition so much is for as intimidating as the options can be sometimes, it ultimately gives you so much room to kind of make almost any character concept that you want. Whereas like a lot of other systems and all the beauty of this genre of game is you can kind of tweak anything you want as long as the whole table's on board with it. You can kind of be like, oh, this class doesn't quite work for what I want, but let's tweak it. Is everybody okay if I let this player like do this with their character's class a little bit, and then we can like play around with something else?
Yeah.
So like anything's possible, but like the base of Pathfinder First Edition like has so much runway to
I love that. Specifically with character creation,
yeah, and also with as a GM, it has a lot of empowerment for tweaking monsters, altering encounters.
Can you give me an example of what makes it so easy? You know what I mean, or what's so interchangeable?
Yeah, and I might be exposing myself as a Pathfinder purist here, so if 5th edition has these things as well, I'm sorry, I don't know for sure.
You may bear your purity. Feel free.
But, all right, awesome. So Pathfinder has like a whole like dozens and dozens of monster archetypes that you can just kind of slap onto almost any monster. Like you can make a, like, let's take a, I can't think of a single monster all of a sudden. Let's look at a giant boar.
Love boars.
You can make that boar from from one of the elemental planes with an archetype. You can make it a celestial boar. You can make it a fiendish boar. You can just make it a stronger boar with the advanced template. You can make it a young boar. You can make it an even bigger boar. You can make it a smaller boar. And all those different options have like archetypes, and there's like a quick build option, and then there's like the crunch, like here's like if you want to actually take the time to alter the stats, here's what that archetype does.
Interesting. But that's there's multiple versions of that for creatures.
Oh yeah. Like those are all their own individual archetypes, and they'll include like this alters the challenge rating of this monster by this much, or like depending on the archetype, this decreases the challenge rating.
Very, very helpful.
Yes.
Because I mean, personally, like I homebrew a fair amount, and I therefore am reskinning a lot of stuff, right? Which is like basically what we're talking about. But that
keeping track of,
oh my God,
will this kill my party or not is very important.
Totally. I mean, especially with like BBEGs. I mean, it's even with playtesting.
It's a balancing act.
Exactly, because I also think that the 5th edition CR is like inconsistent in terms of some of its monsters or some of its jumps from like 7, 8, 9 onward. So I've there's been times where I've like reskinned and ported over and then added on just 1 or 2 elements, and it has been way stronger and in some cases way weaker. Depending on how you build it. Dude, I like that because I like crunch. I enjoy a little Captain Crunch in there. But regardless of whether or not the player enjoys it, like for the system to work, the DM really has to be, competent and kind of, in there. Well, in the Dungeon Master Guide, which will just be my reference point, but I really, of course, want the Pathfinder version. But the DM Guide talks about kind of the pillars of D&D and really of tabletop period, which are like exploration, like RP, social interaction, to some degree like puzzles, intrigue, and then combat, of course. And I'm curious, like, is there, how does like, does Pathfinder, prioritize one over another? How does Pathfinder handle role play? And then also, like, how do you, as a GM, kind of like to style your campaigns within the context of those pillars?
Sure. I think just about every TTRPG system favors combat over everything. Yeah. Like, no matter what they might say, I think that they're all geared to, first and foremost, you want to kill some monsters, and we need to make sure that that is the most competent system in this entire rule set. But yeah, no, Pathfinder does, they hold a lot of import to intrigue, to exploration. They've got like you've got like your core rule books, and then you've got your Dungeon Master's Guide. But they also have all of these like mainline rules books, like that just focus on like very specific elements. You've got like a book called Ultimate Intrigue, a book called Ultimate Wilderness, you've got Planar Adventures, and they all just kind of go like, if you want your campaign to be focused on this element, like A, check out this book. B, this is how you take elements of the stuff in this book and put it into a normal campaign. And C, here's a trillion options for players who want to make characters that are in that kind of a setting.
Focus that way. Interesting. And how do you like to, like, I mean, I assume, Pathfinder probably has modules as well.
Oh, yeah.
And are you more of kind of like a module, more homebrew, more splitting the difference to a degree?
I really hope that I see some royalty checks from Pathfinder with how much I'm glazing them right now. But yes, I'm a huge fan of pre-written adventures, because just like with TTRPGs in general, you can take a pre-written adventure and you can alter it however you want.
Right.
And you can make it your own adventure, but it's got this foundation that, you didn't need to put hours and hours of work into. And not that I'm not saying there's anything wrong with doing that. I used to do that, and my hat off to anyone who still does that. I know how much of an investment that is.
Present.
But as a father of two, husband of one, full-time job, part-time job, favorite color green kind of guy, I just don't have the time to do that anymore.
Well, dude, so enjoying green takes a ton of time. Out of my day, out of your day, out of people's days. It's
the first and last hour of my day every day.
What a day that is. Oh my God, dude, that's hysterical. No, I get that, man. I really honestly love that's how that Pathfinder should pay you, but that you're championing the module like that, because I feel like homebrew is what's always like preferred or like considered so impressive and flashy, but there are some great modules. And regardless of who you are, it's very rare that you are 100% keeping the module as is. Like, there's almost always a little tweaking or pivoting.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
You can't stop me from tweaking it.
Yeah.
I'm going to tweak it.
I'm a tweaker. Oh my gosh, dude. That's legit. I love that. Well, have you found that, I agree that combat is such a huge part of what brings me to the table. I think it's like kind of built into a lot of the leveling and kind of what the expected experience is for a player at the table. Maybe it changes module to module, but to what degree, if any, are you like, are Pathfinder, like, are you preferring the intrigue campaigns? Are you preferring the like bloody combat driven campaigns? Like, what is your heightened preference?
That's tough, because I think that the best campaigns have a healthy dose of everything. The last campaign I ran was actually, so Pathfinder, they have like one-shot modules, but they also do adventure paths, which is they do it slightly different in second edition, but for first edition it was a collection of 6 books that
Cool.
took that just is a string of adventures that brought characters from first level to not often 20th level, but like 14th to 17th level. It was just like it was literally a pre-written campaign.
But
And
it was like it was meant to be just sort of like a piece of a campaign for just those levels.
no,
Like you would start the campaign at 14 and then run this adventure.
Oh, no. You would start at first. You'd run through book 1.
Oh, I
and
see.
then that would take you to
Multiple
like level 4.
Cool.
And then you go to book 2. It was just this overarching story. And so the last campaign I ran was an undead survival horror campaign, pre-written campaign, and that was a lot of fun, but it was exhausting.
Because it was a lot of combat.
It was a lot of combat, and
A lot of undead death.
there was a lot of undead. There's a lot of death. There's a lot of return from the dead, and there was certainly they had some intrigue like peppered in there every once in a while, but like when the campaign ended, and everybody had fun, but like there was also like this feeling of like just fatigue that we were just like, man, I can't believe we just did that. The campaign I ran before that was another pre-written AP from Paizo. That was a pirate campaign. So you just start as like a press-ganged swab on a pirate ship, and you eventually work your way up to like running the whole pirate kingdom.
I like being impressed into service, period. I learned that from a young age. I learned to love it. But that is, I mean, I've only had arcs upon the high seas. I love the idea of beginning the campaign on a boat. Because I'll tell you what, dog, you ain't getting off it. You're on the boat.
Right, yeah. Where are you going to go?
Until we make port somewhere. It's an aquatic railroad. Just kidding, though. Dude, Chromie, good seeing you. Fuzka, good seeing you guys. Appreciate y'all coming in. It is Wednesday, and we are here with GM Alex, a very, very talented and honestly like a Pathfinder focused GM who's kind of breaking us off, which I appreciate, man. I remember that we
That's
talked
not
about
true.
that.
I've never played Pathfinder in my life. You're putting words in my mouth.
You're like, until they pay me, I'm not going to take ownership of this. Dude, I love that. So yeah, I think we all can definitely resonate. I mean, Chromie, my best friend, turned undead, but can resonate with that feeling of like, damn, okay, this has been a lot of combat. Like sometimes the BBG where it's like 3 sessions of combat, like those sometimes are beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
I've enjoyed a lot of those. But sometimes it is like, all right, shit, let's go shop,
Yeah, and that's kind of like that's one of those things where it's like, you could have a 3-session combat where like you add in there where you're like, that was beautiful. That was
right.
The whole thing. It was so like dynamic, and everything was changing all the time.
Yeah.
And like it was never we never felt like a slog, but it was always a challenge. And like those are just like just worth their weight in gold. And then there's other 3-session combats where it's just like, can we just end, please?
Yeah.
I'm just so tired of this.
I mean, that happens. I like to ask for feedback, but sometimes you don't need it because you're like, oh shit. So I mean, Pathfinder is D20 based, right?
Yes.
Cool. So like, does it also focus on the class system?
Yes.
Can you break off the classes for us?
Well, there's quite a lot. At its inception, it was basically meant to be like a kind of like a cleaned up, tightened 3.5, D&D 3.5. So you've got your core classes like the fighter, sorcerer, wizard, bard, rogue, ranger, barbarian. But they've over the years they expanded, and there's cavalier, which is kind of like a fighter on horseback with some other mechanics. There's the war priest, that's like a mesh between a fighter and a cleric. There's they they created a third magic type. So you've got arcane and divine. They created the psychic magic.
Okay.
That like everybody thought they were going to do psionics when they announced that they're like branching off to a third thing, but it was it's pretty similar magic to like arcane and divine, but like instead of like somatic and verbal components, you've got thought and emotion components that have all these different
a thoughtful spellcaster.
Yeah.
Okay. That's
so like
if way to frame it.
Yeah, and so then they created like 4 or 5 different casting classes that all use psychic magic. Yeah, they've got like a couple dozen classes.
I'm seeing an anti-paladin, which is pretty badass.
Oh yeah, that you got to be chaotic evil instead of lawful good.
Is that what it is? Yeah, you must be chaotic evil. Interesting. Smite good is an okay. This is interesting. So, I'm seeing quite a few on these Pathfinder classes. That's cool. Okay. Sorry. We will go back. That's incredible, man. The hybrids, like the idea of being able to mesh up like a cleric and a fighter and getting a war priest or whatever. You know, in 5th edition, there are, you know, and in every edition, for the most part, there are many kind of iterations of a cleric. It's one of like the longest standing D&D class types. But to fully like combine classes without kind of multi-classing, like in D&D,
right? Like
that to me harkens to some of the interchangeability of the different templates that you were kind of referencing when homebrewing, you know, when creating, like, et cetera. That's cool.
And it goes back to what I was saying, where like that's one of the reasons I like Pathfinder First Edition is just you have truly so many options for character creation. Like, because like just sticking on the war priest, like I want to be a cleric, but like I want him to be like more of a beat 'em up kind of, like I want him to have a god, but like maybe like I feel like the cleric, you got to follow your god's tenements too closely, and like war priest is just like that, like, hey, I made this for you. It's exactly what you wanted.
Yeah. Like you can pray, you can kill and pray, whatever, however you want to do it. I love that, man. This is honestly making me want to, you know, check out a little Pathfinder. I know a lot of people who have enjoyed it, and I myself, I love the crunch. You know, I'm a Crunchyroll guy. So I could see that being right up my alley. And just for what it's worth, I also too enjoy the like forever like tweaking of building characters. Like, you know, sometimes that can be so fun to kind of try on. We've got a guy in the Discord and in the chat. His name's Amon. He's hilarious, but plays a lot of D&D 5e, creates a lot of characters, and has the most intricate, like overlapping backstories. A lot of characters that are in fact another character. You know what I mean? And that to me, I also do love my anime Crummy. That was meant to be an entente. But obviously that's so much of the draw, you know, for why a player will come. Sometimes you have players that prefer that kind of RP, that character creation, that kind of embodiment of someone else, more than they even enjoy the dice or the combat or whatever it would be.
Totally.
Do you find like with just to kind of cap those classes, because I brought it up in the browser as well, and there's clearly way more than there are in D&D. Have you found that there is a specific Pathfinder class that you really enjoy GMing for? We play favorites here.
Yeah. I really like having classes with stuff built into them that like I can kind of stir around a bit, like a cleric. You know, the player playing a cleric. Yeah, they're playing their character, and they're not playing the god that their character prays to. Like that's my job.
Yeah. They're praying to you, and Alex, in a way.
Exactly, as they should. So,
as I've trained them to do. Oh my god, that's funny.
um, my, I think my favorite class as a player and a GM, but I think it might be the worst class mechanically, is called the medium, and it's one of those psychic casters. And every day you wake up and you perform a seance, and you connect yourself to a spirit, and the spirit is typically tied to like the flavor of your surroundings. So if you like do your seance in a library, you'll attract an archmage spirit. If you do your seance in a church, you'll attract the hierophant. If you do your seance in like a side alley, you might find the trickster spirit. And then you've got like the champion, the couple others. But the whole idea is each of those spirits kind of encompasses like an entire archetype of hero. You've got the arcane caster, the divine caster, you've got the fighter, you've got the tank, you've got the trickster, or the rogue. And so basically on any given day, you can have any role that your party needs you to have.
Interesting.
And it also comes with like unlimited player and GM flavoring in those spirits that you're attracting. So, day to day, most days it could just be like, I pray and or I do my seance, I attract this spirit. All right, moving on. But anytime I would need them to, I could be like, okay, well, you attract a spirit, and this spirit, he's got a bit of a personality, and he's he has some demands for you. You can use his abilities, but he's gonna really need you to, go over here and do this real quick, and et cetera, et cetera. And like from a player perspective, you can like take on aspects of the personality of the spirit.
Oh, big time. Yeah, I mean,
that
like
you're channeling.
Like there's. I mean, that's almost endless. Like I love the idea of like a really bookish character that perhaps is like almost drawing, either from like fictional characters they're reading about or the histories of this gallant knight, this extremely clever alchemist, whomever, that they're then using to kind of flavor and color. That's awesome. Like that is the type of character that I would always prefer in video games because I can never decide. Yeah.
It's a real storyteller's kind of class. Now, the reason why it's also the worst class mechanically is because for Pathfinder and many other systems, like you've got to specialize in something. I'm the healer, and I've made sure I've taken feats and accumulated magic items and done this and that to make sure that I'm the best healer I can be. As the medium, you can either focus on like one single type of spirit and do that, or you can do what the class wants you to do and just kind of be okay at everything. And so that's why it's occasionally like, a lot of people don't really like playing the medium, and I can't blame them for that, but it's just as a storyteller and from a role player's perspective, it's like my favorite class.
That's rad. And sometimes a character, I mean, unless you're really truly min-maxing or trying to, if you're more of a power gamer in that sense, but some characters like it's more fun to almost make a little bit more of a RP based or a little bit more of a like realistic or grounded character, however that would mean, even if it comes with weaknesses, that can sometimes be really like kind of fun to overcome. Would you say that there's and maybe it is just the medium, but is there a class in Pathfinder that is like harder for you to DM, harder for you to incorporate?
I don't know about that. I think that more comes with the territory of player personality, player play styles.
Sure. That's the challenge.
There are, and look, at the end of the day, like there are just some players that don't mesh with every group. There are some GMs that don't mesh with every group, and that's okay. As long as everybody's having fun, you have to find the right group for you. But that's not to say that, as soon as, it becomes a challenge to adjudicate for or just kind of, be the GM for a specific player or, the build that they've chosen, like that, I'd be like, well, you're not compatible with this group. Get out of here. But there's definitely a certain mix of elements where it becomes a bit more challenging, a bit less fun to, as a GM, like tell a story or run a dungeon.
Yeah. I mean, that's again really like, player to player based, but that's a really wise point to raise, because like a good GM or DM needs to be really, sensitive to that. Like have antennae up for that specifically, right? In terms of sort of the alchemy of a table or what makes it kind of gel or move. I love that. Okay, so I of course live to confound my players, like any true master wizard. I look to test and break those that are not yet ready. But
as they should be.
I love, come ye humbly. But I love the idea of essentially like, occasionally almost as like a poker's bluff, just sort of rolling a die. The pump fake, as it were, the empty roll. And, I'm curious, of course, if you do that. And I'm just sort of curious in general, like how are you staying ahead of your table? What steps are you taking specifically to either deepen the intrigue or protect your own plot twists?
Yeah. It's been a while since I've played at a physical table.
Cool.
I've been pretty digital lately. And so my die rolls, whether I make them or not, and then what their outcomes are just kind of known to me exclusively.
Cool. Because you're rolling analog while playing virtually.
Yes.
Cool.
But I make all the players roll virtually because, only the GM should have that kind of power. Yeah, pretty much. But back when I did do a physical table, I would definitely play around with player expectations, what they've come to, like, use their own expectations against them. Like, I've just kind of definitely rolled a die before and been like, and like look at a chart. Okay, so you open the door and blah blah blah. But like, but meanwhile it meant nothing. But it got all of them to be like, okay, well, we should be ready for
that's wisdom.
Something.
That's wisdom. Consulting a table, or whenever somebody makes a choice and then you need to take a moment. Sometimes I think is a great play. I love that.
Another thing is anytime someone would roll sense motive, I would never not roll a die. Like if the NPC they were rolling against was being completely truthful, I would still roll my die and I would look at their character sheet and be like, you don't suspect any falsehoods.
That's awesome.
Because if I didn't roll that die, then they would be like, oh well, there must have not been an ulterior motive to sense.
Yeah. In that consistency, is what makes that replicable.
Exactly.
I like that. I like raising that specifically because that's totally part of the deal. Do you ever roll for events that are happening in between sessions or off table?
Sometimes. Usually what I'll do is kind of prep for that between sessions, and then I'll roll
right
at the table, but I'll have all my ducks in a row first, and I don't need to do any make any split decisions, any sudden choices about, oh well, I wasn't expecting to roll low, what happens when I roll low on this thing. But that was when I was prepping, it'd be like, well, what would happen if I rolled low? Then something bad's gonna happen, but what would happen? So instead of me being like, ooh, maybe I should just pretend I didn't roll low.
Got you.
One thing that I've
just real quick, because I love that, and I kind of want to tuck into that. Is that almost like in between sessions you're trying to sort out either the the cause and effect of what happened in the previous session, or you're seeing that the party is heading now to, the results of a fork in the road, and you're needing to deduce the conclusion. Are you saying that sometimes you will roll for it in between sessions, and in the moment of seeing the roll, realize, actually, I'm going to kind of decide?
I mean, sometimes there's just stuff that you could have never possibly prepared for. And yeah, you got to think on your feet when that happens, for sure. Usually if there's like actually physically a fork in the road, it's, I just already know what's in either direction of that fork. It's not like a matter of rolling for it.
Okay, cool. Okay, cool. Sick. I get that. How does, and like, this is only because like combat is such a big part of it, but how does death work in Pathfinder?
I mean, it's pretty permanent.
Yeah.
There's spells and other abilities that can undo it. Obviously you have undead that, go the opposite direction.
Vibing.
But yeah, I mean, usually it's some sort of divine spell, but there are other casters that can bring the dead back. It usually costs, like diamond dust or some other expensive component in addition to the spell. And then the person that you brought back, unless you're using like 9th level spells or something like that, the person that you brought back will have negative levels.
Cool.
But like negative levels.
Okay. Yeah.
But negative levels don't mean like, well, now you're only an 8th level fighter instead of a 9th level fighter. It's just more like a debuff.
Uh-huh. So like
for each negative level, you lose 5 hit points and you take a -2 to like pretty much everything that you roll. And that just stacks. So if you have like 5 negative levels, that's a pretty big deal. But then you can remove those with other like restoration magic or similar stuff. But
they probably also take components and whatnot, right?
They also costs money. And there's temporary negative levels and permanent negative levels, and all permanent negative levels started as temporary. And 24 hours after you've gotten a temporary negative level, you make a new saving throw against whatever gave it to you, and if you fail, it's now permanent. And once it's permanent, it becomes way harder to remove, but still not irreversible.
Interesting. And if I'm a Pathfinder character, because you talk about hit points, like, do you, like in D&D, if you drop to 0 hit points, you make death saves, and basically like first to 3 successes or failures. There's other ways that you can die, like quicker than that, but like, are there checks and balances beyond getting down to 0?
Oh, don't get hit. That's a great
the Smash Bros mantra.
Yep. No. So yeah. I'm aware of the death saving throws in 5th edition, but like I've never been a part of that myself. So I'm very, very unfamiliar with the nuances of those. But in Pathfinder, like you die if you reach an amount of negative hit points equal to your Constitution score,
which is 0 to 20.
It can be higher, but typically your Constitution score is like the average score is like 10.
Okay, so if you go beyond, you go to -10.
-10, you're dead.
Got
it.
And
if like someone hit you with a sword and they hit you hard enough to bring you from 1 hit point to -10 hit points, then you're dead.
Oh, so wait a minute. Okay, that's crazy. So in D&D, the equivalent of that is if they exceed whatever your hit point maximum is in the negative direction. So like
your hit point maximum?
Yeah. So like as you get into higher levels, it becomes much, much harder to one shot in that sense.
I should say so.
The first couple levels pretty straightforward. Like if you're exceeding, 10, 12, 18, but in Pathfinder it's locked at pretty much somewhere typically between 8 and 22, more or less, we could say.
Yeah, it's a
Dang.
safe. Yeah, you can definitely pump it up higher than that, but yeah, 22 is a pretty good Constitution score. And if you hit 0, you're considered disabled, and you can like you're still conscious, but you can only do like a standard action or a move action on your turn. As soon as you hit -1 hit points, you're unconscious and you're bleeding out. So each round you need to make a Constitution check, and it's 10 plus the number of hit points that you are negative.
That's
So
cool. What a cool
you're at
device.
-1.
Oh, shit.
If you're at -1,
It's 11.
it's a DC 11 Constitution check. If you pass, you are stable, still at -1, but no longer dying. If you fail, you lose a hit point, and the next round you need to make another save. But now you're
DC 12.
Now it's DC 12. So it's depending on the factors. It's definitely a bit more drawn out than just like the 3 saves that you get in D&D. I was a player once, and I think I was bleeding out for like 6-7 rounds straight because I could not roll my Constitution save. Literally to save my life. Once you start getting high enough up there, you're like, I'm just looking for a natural 20 at this point.
Somebody save me. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, alternatively, it can be a much quicker ordeal than the death saving throws. So it's really just kind of a matter of what's going on and if someone can help you.
Yeah. And what's going on is a big part of it, because somebody could then stab your disabled body, right? And pretty devastatingly decide how that ends.
Yeah.
Interesting. Is that something you've done? Like, have players died at your table?
Oh yes. It's not a super common thing to happen, but I probably go through anywhere between like 4 to 6 PC deaths in a campaign.
In a campaign, interesting.
So like over the course of like 2 to 3 years, I guess.
And there's typically like 4 to 6 players at the table.
4 to 5, yeah.
4 to 5, okay, yeah. Well, I used 3 characters on a Strahd campaign, which felt like absurd. So I'm no longer in a position to judge. But that, yeah, man, that makes sense. I mean, it does sound like, it takes longer to maybe like die if you're not, devastated in the attack that disabled you. But it does sound like in the throes of combat, or let's say if you're disabled and an area of effect spell goes off or something like that, that could be a very, very dangerous place to be. So I get that.
And I don't know if 5th edition still has these, because I know they were around like 3.5, but there are spells that can just like straight up kill you on a failed save, no matter like where your hit points are.
Yeah. There's not a lot of them, but power word kill and disintegrate and
oh yeah, I think my single favorite PC murder I've ever done.
Tell me of your favorite murder.
Well, the murder I'm most fond of was when the group was up against this evil cleric, and he had a spell called Death Clutch, and you literally you rip the heart out of the target from from across the room. He just like holds his hand out, and like the PC's heart just bursts out of his chest, and it like zooms into the guy's hand. And the real what made it so metal was like it wasn't an instant death because like your heart gets ripped. Yeah, and but the player's heart was ripped out, but he's still like alive for like a round. So, but like it kind of gives the players a chance to like undo it. Like,
and how the fuck do you undo that? Like
magic. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely not as matter of just stuffing the heart back in there.
I cast Return Heart. It's dude, that's intense.
Through complete random circumstances, the player who died was actually psychically controlling the cleric's construct, and so we ruled it as, even though his physical body died, he was still alive and controlling the construct until that spell ended.
Okay. I like that. I mean,
Yeah.
like, I mean, cool to like give them something to do in that situation. You know what I mean? But it's also like,
Oh, for sure.
you know, a good. It feels accurate with the role playing.
Yeah, no, that was a lot of fun.
Dude,
But yeah, like he was at, I don't think he was low on hit points at the time. I think he was at full hit points.
That's
and
just how it
it's
went
just,
down.
you know, you fail one save and you get your heart ripped out.
Chromie is saying this. They're playing basic expert D&D. So many save or suck spells. Yeah, I think of the early editions of D&D as being like full of those. Which, I mean,
Yeah.
you know, and I feel like in Chromie, I'd love to hear more thoughts on like what it's like running basic expert. Is that what came between first and second edition D&D? Am I right about that? But the Save or Suck kind of has a, I feel like a damned if you do, damned if you don't quality to it. Where, I mean, at a certain point, especially higher level, I assume Pathfinder, but certainly D&D play, like there's just not that many spells that are as devastating or as like balancing for an enemy to have in combat, we could say, as those like full paralysis, you know, save or go mad, you know, a ghost possession, like that type of shit. There's some things that like happen, and until someone helps you out, you have nothing to do as a player, you know.
It comes with a certain level of responsibility, the way I've always seen it. Both, I think, GM and player, because those spells are available to players too. And like, I think we've all seen those memes on social media where it's like, I cast this spell plus that spell, and I've got this feat, and I win all encounters ever. And like, cut to like the GM who's like, oh no. And it's like, well, first of all, that's probably not how that would happen.
Probably not.
Second of all, second of all, there are certainly, you know, mechanical exploits that players can do to like deal an absurd amount of damage, or just kind of like crank up spell save DCs so high that like I cast sleep and you go to sleep and like there's nothing you can do about it except get a natural 20. And I think that, you know, cool, great. That sounds like a lot of fun until you do it for every single encounter, and it's like, well, are we even telling a story anymore? Are we even having fun?
Are we just upcasting sleep? Damn it!
Yeah,
I don't know why that kills me.
And yeah, I think that the GM also has a certain responsibility. It's kind of like a, you know, mutually assured destruction kind of situation where it's like, let's limit our use of these save or suck spells and effects to, you know, the level of being appropriate.
Sure. Which depends on my mood that day, frankly.
It depends on a lot of factors, for sure. I think the least, even more hated than a save or die was, in my group, is if you get frightened or panicked and it makes your character run away. I think that was the single most reviled effect that could ever happen, because not only do you have all of your autonomy taken away, but also once you get it back, you're now a quarter mile away from the combat.
Yeah, there's some things that like pragmatically for a tabletop session, you know, like that's the mutually assured destruction. Is you're like, well, fuck, like, do I want Frank to be here for 2 hours not doing shit? Plus, is Frank going to come back and do nothing but upcast sleep for the next two encounters? You know what I mean? So I get that. There's a little bit of kind of give and take there, but that's also gets back to that understanding the alchemy of your table, right?
For sure. If there are some tables who would just, that's what they do and they love it and they have fun, and that's not my bag, but you know,
yeah,
go crazy, guys. You know, nuke each other to your heart's content.
Yeah, I cast Nuclear Storm, Nuclear Winter. That's amazing, dude. So like we have a segment that we always do like at the very end called Rapid Fire, which we will get to. I'm not sure how the it's a contractual obligation. I'm so sorry. But
Okay. Will there be green?
Yeah, you're like green. Yeah, but I love the idea of. Well, I just wish I had more Pathfinder specific questions. But regardless,
that's okay if you don't.
Regardless of system. Like,
Pathfinder's not my whole personality, baby.
Yeah,
I can
exactly.
Take walks
There's
on the
more.
beach too.
Yeah, I watch movies. Is there anything from your bag of prep that you really have found helpful? Just period. Anything that either you do that you're like, man, this made it easier, or something that you found that helped you at some point. Anything like
that. First, I would say if you plan on doing random weather, do that beforehand.
Roll for it before the session.
Roll random weather for 2 weeks in advance, and just have it on a spreadsheet, and then you don't need to. Especially if you're going for more than just it's raining or it's sunny. If you're and also there's wind and also there's fog. If you have more complicated stuff like that. Roll 2 weeks in advance, put it on a sheet, and just tick it off one at a time. And that way, if someone says, "I want to, try to do tell the forecast is going to be sunny tomorrow," I don't need to roll. I can just tell them.
I love
but that was
weather
just
app.
That's something that I just kind of happened to recently. That was just on the top of my head. I think the thing that after my this whole career of GMing, I think the prep advice that I hold most dearly is, instead of writing up a monologue for your BBEG to spew, because either unless it's insanely short, and that's okay if it is, unless it's insanely short, your players are either going to stop paying attention or they're going to try to interrupt them.
Yeah.
Instead of writing a monologue, write 3 to 5 shorter declarations and even possible retorts.
I was going to say
throughout the combat, on his turn or her turn, you read the next thing. It's like any Undertale fans, the big Sans fight at the end of Genocide, where at every single round he's got a new thing to say, but it's all scripted. I think that's my favorite thing that I would tell someone who has a big evil boss.
Yeah.
And they're like, I want him to have this big juicy speech. And no, don't do the speech. It doesn't work for TTRPGs. It works for TV shows, it works for movies, it works for books. It doesn't work for TTRPGs because your player's just gonna be like, I shoot an arrow in his face.
Yeah.
Write up 3 to 5 smaller speeches, and then you just each turn he's got a new thing to say. And if somebody has a sassy remark on their turn, maybe you've already got a sweet retort already written down. You can just be like, oh yeah, return fire.
Yeah. Having retorts prepped is brilliant. Alex, that's great advice, dude. I think breaking up the monologue period can up its efficacy, right? Because then you can have, if you have legendary actions that are already going to break up a character's turn, or whatever it would be, that can really add some specificity to it. I do also like the idea of prepping retorts. I feel like a lot of my prep is really just dialogue, where either some for combat, sure, but also if there's 2 or 3 bits of information, maybe I'm not sure exactly who's going to say it, but it's something that if they're investigating, they might come across. Having that already in the chamber can really lead to some deepening of roleplay, I feel like. But I would also counter that the beauty of time stop as a spell is it really, really puts the brakes on interruption, on the arrow fire. Like, you toss out a time stop, that's a guaranteed. It's a minimum of like 18 seconds. You know what I mean? And I had
no, you will listen to my monologue.
No, for sure. I maybe need to edit that up because a player I have who is also a DM I play with and a dear friend and a constant thorn in my side, but he interrupted the monologue and it was so satisfying because he was like, I do something. I'm like, bro, you are frozen in place. You do nothing, you know? But no, that's wise, man. And Chromie, I appreciate you tossing this out. I'm fine with Save or Suck, honestly. It's really addition dependent. Agreed. It's just so silly and fun when you die because you triggered a trap on a treasure. But because creating a character is so quick, I assume in Pathfinder compared to... Oh, no. This is in Basic compared to 5e. It's not really an issue. Yeah, no, that's legit. What do you do? Like, how are you with traps?
I can hang with traps. They, I think they should also be kind of managed to a degree. If your games get too trap heavy, then they the players will start to over prepare and the traps will become pointless.
You will become trapped. Yeah.
Right. Too many traps equals no traps.
Got it. Dude, what a great quote. Too many traps equals no traps. I love it. We're going to set that over some trap music and hopefully reach the masses because that's a critical piece of information.
I would love to hear what trap music sounds like.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. I just love that you've never heard of trap. God bless. I need that.
Okay.
Too many traps is no traps. That's accurate. That's gospel around here.
Take it to the bank.
Chromie, you heard it here. Use that. Use it and dispute it. Okay, well, last question for the rapid fire. Is there anything that, because you've dropped some gems, man. I really, I think I described it as you were going to come on and crack some eggs of knowledge upon our heads. And you have.
Okay.
Especially in these trying times of egg shortages. What an expensive trip. And
my daughter dropped a carton of eggs this morning.
No.
And
bless her.
If anyone wants to purchase a 10-year-old girl, I can afford a new carton of eggs.
That's great. I will trade you for 3 cartons of eggs. Oh my
wonderful.
God. That's hilarious. Dude, yeah, that feeling of being like, can I salvage this yolk? Right?
Yep.
Where you're like, should I save a third of this egg? God bless. But is there anything like just you, Alex, as a GM, with your years of experience with dozens of different player types and many different campaign settings and modules, are there any things that you just really feel proud of? Where you're like, man, I nailed this, or like, wow, this element of this encounter really elevated it, or they never saw the fact that the dwarf was actually this girl's daughter, like any of those type of things.
Yeah, I've definitely got a few of those. The first one that came to mind is when we were doing that pirate campaign I mentioned. They had to do it's called the Shackles Regatta, and they had to race their ship against all the other free captains through this eternal mythical storm. And I took that splice up the monologue thing, but I did that with describing the epicness of the storm around them, and then I'd bring it back to, okay, now make a profession sailor check, and we'll see how well you navigate through this part, and if you can avoid this debris that's coming at you, et cetera, et cetera. And then after we settled all of that, I would then read my next portion of, this is how big the storm is, this is how epic it is, this is how little your ship looks next to all the waves crashing around, et cetera, et cetera. And it was almost the entire session's worth was that one race, and it just kind of, the whole thing from start to finish, it just ended up flowing really, really well, especially considering how, and again, this is all part of a pre-written campaign, and it came with, I love crunch. This was hardtack.
Wait, was the race included in in
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah. The race was part of the pre-written adventure, and like to calculate like your race score and damage to the ship and your speed and everything. There was a lot of crunch, a lot of like, okay, hold on, let me take this number and divide it by 2, and then I've got to add this to your blah blah blah. And I prepped my face off for that session, and it was like butter. And just
awesome,
it was
dude.
because I was reading and I was like, this sounds so cool. It's gonna be filled with silence as I like calculate everything. So I did everything like beforehand, and it just ran like a movie, and I was very proud of that.
Dude, let's fucking go.
And I think the most proud I ever was of like a GM decision was this includes some spoilers if anyone decides to play the Tyrant's Grasp Adventure Path for Pathfinder First Edition.
You have been warned.
You are warned. Also, if you want to listen to that campaign or the pirate one, these were I used to be in a podcast called Inspired Incompetence. We published both of those campaigns. You can find them on our website, inspiredincompetence.com. Okay, I'm not part of it anymore, but I'm still friends with the guys.
Well, you were part of that. Of those arcs for sure.
Yeah. So, but spoilers for this because it was particularly it was a very narrative heavy moment in the Tyrant's Grasp campaign. That was the undead survival horror one. The group basically has to arrive to this city. It's a paladin city called Vigil, and they have to warn the powers that be that this big bad lich that everybody thought was banished. He's back, or he's coming back, and he's also got these magical nukes that can flatten a city, and you've got to we need to warn everybody he might be targeting this city next. And the whole, it's an entire book's worth of the adventure where you have to kind of bump elbows with the power players of the city and convince them that there might be a problem, and then you have to go spelunking underneath the city to look for follow leads and stuff. And while you're below the city, the bomb goes off, and when you come back up, the city is just it's demolished, and a huge percentage of the population are either dead or they've been raised as undead, and you have to escape the city. Now, the city itself had a population of, let me see if I can remember this because I said it every single session when we started. I said, here we are back in Vigil. Back in Vigil, population 11,500. And at first, everybody was like, oh, it's the first time we've been to a big city. It's crowded. There's a lot of people. That's why Alex is saying population 11,000.
He's really hammering the population number.
After 10 sessions or so, they're like, hey, Alex, why the fuck do you keep saying population 11,500? I'd be like, I'm just telling you. It's an interesting factoid. Don't worry about it.
I'm just establishing.
When they resurfaced after the bomb went off, and I said, you are back on the surface. Buildings are rubble. The harbor is a mess. The metalworks is just a slab of slimy steel. You're back in Vigil, population unknown. And we continued like that until they escaped the city with as many refugees as they could. And then I backtracked and said, your actions when you first arrived in the city, trying to warn people, doing this, trying to do the right thing, even though this guy was being an asshole, you still you tried to convince them, you tried to include them in the preparations and everything. They all made a difference. You did this and that saved people. You did this, that saved people. These people were prepared after that bomb went off and they saved people. Vigil, population 2,300, I think, or something like that was the final number. Meanwhile, one of the PCs, he was like an estranged son of one of the nobles of the city. He came back just because that was where the story demanded of him.
Yeah.
He found out that his brother had married and his sister-in-law was pregnant with a baby. And as they were evacuating, she's in the throes of labor, and it's just a whole extra thing.
Oh, fuck.
And people started to be like, what's going to happen? Like, what is she going to give birth to? Like, all this undead fallout, like, what's going to happen? They're on a ship sailing out of the harbor at the end. She gives birth, perfect baby girl. Like, nothing wrong with her. It's this, like, little miracle of
10
life.
10 fingers, 10 toes, dog.
And I ended population 2,301.
Come the fuck on. Alex! Come on, dog. That's called a cherry on top.
That was...
There are train systems that seek timing like that.
That was the single proudest series of GMing I've ever done.
Oh, dude, I love that. I love that. That does sound, extremely satisfying to get there. And what a beautiful, touching, moment, especially sailing out, escaping. But whenever you have the foresight to really establish well, and then you have it almost called out by a player to that degree. Very, very cool to see that come full circle, man.
And then the real fun thing was every city that they went to after, not that there was a lot, I always deigned to tell them what the population of the city was, just for fun. But they never liked hearing the population after that. It was weird.
Yeah, exactly. Well, kind of like the weather. That's a cool thing to just drop in a PDF. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They sell some bad grain. Those numbers are going to drop. Well, that was awesome, dude. Truly. I appreciate the walkthrough on a lot of that. With no further ado, though, are you prepared for the rapid fire?
Give it to me, baby.
Very well.
My body's ready.
Yeah. Is your mind? Now, again, there's no wrong choice here, okay? Just let it rip. Go from your gut. Most of these are sort of like binary, left, right, green or green, those type of questions. So,
all right.
With no further ado, the rapid fire shall commence. Do you prefer Dungeon Master or Game Master?
Game Master. It's more universal.
Table snacks, sweet or savory?
Sweet.
Vampires or werewolves?
Vampires.
Cowboys or pirates?
Pirates, duh.
Wow, okay. D100 or D12?
D100 for what? Oh my god.
You'll find out when you pick them up. I love that. 2D6 or 1D12? I'll ask you your own question.
2D6.
2D6?
Consistency.
Statistically,
I love consistency.
A higher average. Okay, I love that. Great axe or great sword?
Great sword. 2D6.
Yeah. You're like, I'll tell you why. Elf or dwarf?
Dwarf.
Knew it. Gnome or halfling?
Halfling.
Tabaxi or tiefling?
Tiefling.
Okay, hellish. And this is the only trick question. Turtle or turtle?
Yes.
We stand turtles on this show. Okay, if you could only play one for the rest of your life, the rest of time, are you playing a martial or a caster?
Caster.
Caster, I love it. If you're only taking one cantrip, is it guidance or mage hand?
Guidance.
Guidance? Fucking love it. You starting a campaign more likely in a tavern or a brothel?
Tavern.
Fey realm or the plane of nine hells?
Fey realm.
Fey or fiend?
Fey.
Who's sexier, kobolds or goblins?
Oh, goblins.
I love it. Can a player seduce a dragon?
Yes.
Scarier thing to encounter in a dungeon? A small boy that's lost and somehow immaculately clean, or an old woman wearing rags that won't stop laughing?
Small boy. Who knows why he's clean? You better dirty the fuck up or I'm
the
leaving.
Cleanliness. I understand that and I get it. Amazing. Alex! Actually, final question. Should cats have dark vision in the Monster Manual and Creature Compendium?
Yes.
I think so too. Absurd that they don't.
I think mundane animals get a humongous shit end of the stick in fantasy games.
Yeah, totally.
Like bears. Oh my god, bears are downplayed so hard.
Agreed. Bears are
Unfair.
like very approachable by like level
Justice
2
for
characters.
bears.
Yeah. Are there no bear mages in this land? Come on. Oh, dude, that is so good. Well, this has been a treat, man. I mean, truly, I appreciate you coming.
Thank you. I had a blast.
You know, spreading some love, spreading some, some knowledge eggs.
Cracking some?
Did you end up finding the Inspired Incompetence link? Is that sort of handy for you to drop in our chat or in our Discord?
Oh my goodness. Not yet.
Well,
Hold
I
on
mean,
a
no
second.
huge rush. Feel free to. I mean, probably the Discord is best. I'll drop that in the old chatito. But yeah, man, we would love to know, how to support you, how to stay in touch, kind of what's next for GM Alex,
Yep.
Well,
I've got a just like a for fun campaign that I'm getting started soon.
Good.
It's not, anything, no podcast behind it. I'm a free range GM right now, as I said earlier.
Come hire this man. Come get him.
I don't have a podcast or a show or any production that I'm a part of right now. I'm just kind of doing my thing.
Living your life, dude. That's how it should be. That's how life should be lived. I fucking love it. Well, anything you want to toss out before we get out of here, man?
I have shared the Inspiring Incompetence link on Discord.
Let's go.
No, I mean, just be good.
Yeah.
Tip your waitress.
Agreed.
Have fun playing games, and don't create trouble.
Don't create
be
trouble.
Good. Behave yourselves.
This is a message for you, Sage. That's a good one. That's wisdom. Alex. Well, dude, it's been an absolute treat. Guys, I can't echo that enough. Be good. All right? Take care of each other. Take care of yourselves. I will be back on Friday where we're having a double DM dip. Bringing in Graffumbly. We're having a chat. I don't think he knows how high the bar has been set by Alex, so you boned.
Oh, come on.
You boned Graffumbly. But truly, check out Inspired Incompetence. If you need a game master, holler at Alex. And as